This is Sharisse Coulter, and this is my friend Solin, who we've been friends since college.
Yes.
And
many years ago.
And we are going to talk about Solin being a refugee from Cambodia, who's now an American citizen, and also someone who is engaged to a Trump supporter. And I'm interested in how that works. So you were actually a refugee at the time that you were born, because you said that you're...
Yeah, we were.
What was the situation in Cambodia that your family left, and then what happened from there?
So during the mid-70s, a war broke out in our homeland, Cambodia, and probably one of the biggest Southeast Asian Holocausts that's existed. It was unsafe for women to be single, at a young age, especially in their teenage and early 20 years, which my mom was. My uncle had arranged for her to get married, even though he probably disapproved of my dad, because the risk of her being unmarried was far too greater. So
wow. That's some heavy stuff. We've talked a lot about relationships.
Right. Talk about hey.
But that really puts a lot in perspective. I think a lot of people hear the word refugee and they see random clips of war-torn countries on the news. And their brains piece together some narrative, which probably has scary music beneath it. And, and for no real reason, just... I don't understand what's happening. That sounds scary.
Right.
And I feel like it's just not very humanized. And the idea of baby Solin in a refugee camp, I'm like, let her over. Why would you not let Solin come over?
Our experience of coming over and being embraced and welcome, that's an experience that I have a soft spot for. This is kind of very representative of America, and she's pretty business savvy, so she was able to open up a deli with my dad in downtown San Jose, and this was like the early 80s, and she had so many funny stories about working there, because English wasn't her primary language, and she was like just starting to slowly understand not only the language but just concepts and certain American brands and names. And so there was one customer that said, "Ma'am, I would like a Dr. Pepper," and she would say, "I'm sorry, there's no doctor here. I think the hospital's over there."
Once your dad left and your mom was in a foreign country supporting kids on her own.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take on. You and your sisters are all college educated, and that's a lot that
it's pretty remarkable.
Accomplish. Do you feel Cambodian? Do you feel American? Do you feel like some sort of hybrid in between?
I feel like I'm both Cambodian and American. It's funny when I go there, and I think it's because of my mannerism and how I'm dressed. The locals don't perceive me as being Cambodian, so they think I'm from another country in Southeast Asia, and so they'll speak to me in English, and then they'll speak to each other in Cambodian, and I'm always and they don't think I understand.
You're all stealthy.
So I get to be like, keep on talking.
You lived the refugee experience, and now, in this current political climate, you are engaged to a Trump supporter.
I am.
And how do you reconcile that?
That's probably like the $1 million questions that my friends all have, because I know he's a Republican, and I know his political views, and you can call him a Trump supporter because that's what he does, but I don't really view him based on that. I guess you can say
that's healthy for a relationship. I'm glad to hear that. When there's something like the travel ban that goes out, is that something, for example, that he supports? Or does he kind of stop and go, hey, that ban, years ago would have blocked my future wife from coming to this country. Like, maybe I'm not cool with that. I guess I'm in some ways more fascinated by how he can reconcile.
Our conversations are especially when it comes to politics, has always been very open and very respectful. And granted that we don't agree with each other's views, we're still able to, at the end of the conversation, like, we don't even need to hug it out. We're just still very, very receptive of each other. And I might disagree with him, but it doesn't stop me from loving him. Would it be inappropriate to give him a hug on camera?
To me, it feels like what has shifted over time. I mean, obviously there have always been, sort of a handful of hot button issues that people vehemently disagree on. But in general, those have been things that can kind of be set aside.
Yeah.
But I think that right now, what's been happening is that those are life and death situations for a lot of people immediately.
Right.
And you cannot talk calmly and rationally and objectively about life and death situations. And I think that when someone's humanity is on the line and somebody else is talking about tax reform, it's hard not to take that personally.
Absolutely.
And I feel, as someone who benefits from a lot of privilege in this society, that there is some responsibility when you're not in a personal life and death situation to be able to kind of pull yourself back and say, hey, look, I can help make a difference for people who cannot, in this moment in time, do this. Right. And so for me, I think that I'm potentially most judgmental of people who come from my background and don't acknowledge it. And don't acknowledge that they're only able to be dispassionate about some of these issues because of an enormous amount of privilege.
I don't take it personally. Like, even though, like, maybe I should take it personally. Obviously.
I mean, I would take it personally, so I think it's amazing that you don't.
And I don't.
I feel like all of us can learn from you.
Oh.
Because I think that...
I have no wisdom to offer.
No, but you do. Because being in a relationship with somebody, I mean, it's challenging enough in general. But when you have big ideological differences, and to still be completely respectful of one another's opinions, I think that you do have some wisdom. Because you're doing that, and you still like each other. And I think that that's...
To a great extent, we like each other.
Yeah, so...
No.
What do you guys know that the rest of us seem not to?
What's our little secret? What's our little secret? I just have a good sense of, I know where he's coming from, and I understand why he feels the way he does. Like, I know there's some really honest and strong, raw emotions that he feels that I feel differently about. And... but there's issues that I feel strongly about where he doesn't feel as passionate about, like women's rights and like the women's body and whatnot. And I can see him backing away, saying like, "Amen, sister." Like, I mean, granted, I'm a Republican, but I definitely respect the women. I don't fault him for how his views are shaped or whatnot. He and I grew up in such different backgrounds. We come from such different places. My only hope is he continues to learn and grow and, try to understand the issues, to the core, as well as myself. I kind of pick and choose certain topics that I want to invest my energy into. I want him to be free to express himself. I don't want him to hide or feel like he can't express his voice or his thoughts. And I don't want to force anything on him, nor do I want him to force anything on me.
Well, clearly he has good cake. So I can't fault him on that level. So So this is Sharisse Coulter, and this has been an awkward conversation with my friend Solin.
Totally awkward.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
talking to me.
Can we hug it out?
We can totally hug it out.